Okay, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Syed Tariq Anwar. I'm a faculty in the College of Business, and today we have a very good seminar on the artificial intelligence, technologies, marketing, and global issues. This is not just Chat GPT. Artificial intelligence, it has many areas, and it's everywhere. It's in front of us. It's all the time. We deal with it. Your iPhone, your refrigerators, your automobiles, you go anywhere. Any distribution, logistics, global issues. So that's why we have 3 sections of this seminar. What is AI? Number 2, what is marketing? And number 3, what are the global issues? And this is where the seminar is. Very brief introduction. I started in WT in 1987, long time ago. We started to do these kind of seminars in 1992. And we started to make videos in 1993. And all the seminars, we did hundreds of seminars. And all the seminars are available on YouTube. We digitized every seminar. Took long time, but they are available. So 1993, and the main area we had in these seminars, marketing and international business. And over these years, in the last 30 plus years, we have lots of students graduated from WT. And they went on to some of the top universities. And they finished their masters, doctorates, all kinds of PhDs, and they are all, many of them are still working. So the point I'm making is that this is the launching pad we had. And we worked with Amarillo College, Amarillo Public Library, Amarillo Economic Development Corporation. We brought speakers from Dallas, Houston, New York, Los Angeles. I mean, this is 30 plus years ago. So I just want everybody to know, some of you may remember that this whole series started 30 plus years ago, so we have come a long way. But WT supported us at each and every level. Some of our seminars were done in Amarillo, by the way, and Dallas, and Houston. So not too much detail, but today I'm going to just say a few things. After that, we will start this session. So this seminar is in cooperation with American Marketing Association. 30,000 members. We have a very productive on-campus. We have a collegiate chapter. It's an award-winning chapter 3 times. And the members are over there and over there. And their names are Ella Young, Christopher Bachman, Melinda Thomas, Merdad Samimi from Iran, Joshua Cox, Gaston Emmanuel, and if I miss somebody, my apology, because I'm just going very fast, but just want to make sure we have a very successful chapter on campus, and we have done lots of these every year. And it's for students, so that our students can be successful. So what is AI, artificial intelligence? Now, this is today's Wall Street Journal, March 1st, 2023. And right in the middle, there's a pretty big article that it says, doctors tap AI to augment diagnostics. So AI is being used in healthcare, higher education, FedEx, UPS, I mean logistics. We had a case study today on this topic. We also had all kind of activities. I mean your retailing, because this is the retailing class we have, but it applies to retailing, strategy, you name any discipline, even music. So AI is a very diverse area, and there are lots of other articles. This is Economist, Fortune magazine, Business Week, Financial Times. Look at any publication and you will see articles on AI in these days. But it's a $300 billion industry, very big, and expected to go beyond 1 trillion after 2032. So we are getting there. It's a very big industry. I don't want to mention too much about the companies because our seminar is to help you understand what is AI. But there are lots of companies. All the companies you use every day, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they are all becoming part of AI. some of the sectors in AI are emerging. And applications are retailing, banking, consumption, logistics, supermarkets, when you go to buy your grocery. And these are all the growth drivers. It's very complex, complicated. And one issue in this industry we have is we do not have enough people. And Dr. Siddiqui will address this issue, that it's very hard to find people. If you are AI expert, you can easily buy your ticket, 100,000 plus. And that is where the issues are. Lots of challenges, ethical issues, privacy. This is not just wonderful everything. So there are lots of things we are discussing, but the sectors are unlimited. Telecom, healthcare, retail, manufacturing, automotive, your automobiles, $3 trillion industry. It is full of AI. Anyway, so this is my basic introduction. We have three very good speakers, and they are all from WT, and we are very proud that they are working here. Dr. Siddiqui, Mohammad Siddiqui is from India. He is assistant professor of computer science. Daniel Klaehn is our colleague. He is the director of English Lab, Writing Center. You all know him very well. And Dr. Dave Rausch, you have seen him on local television and beyond. He's our political scientist. So I purposely brought three diverse people because we would like to hear their perspective. Technical issues, writing, and political issues, because all the things are happening very fast. So let's invite Dr. Siddiqui first.
Hello everyone, good morning. As Dr. Anwar has already told that I'm assistant professor in computer science. I go by Mohammad Siddiqui. And I did my PhD from US University in Toledo, Ohio. And then I started working here a couple of years ago. And my area of research has been somewhat around this AI. My area of research specifically was human-computer interaction, and which takes a lot from artificial intelligence as well. So today we are here to discuss about the things that we think about AI are good enough. And I'll break your conventions about that they are not that good enough as they seem to us, right? Because every time you work in such an area like artificial intelligence, you cannot help but praise how good your brain is, right? Because we have those capabilities that sometimes it looks like impossible that we can impart it to a machine. So starting off with a very basic question, because many of us have wrong conventions about what is an AI. Anything we look at a machine doing by itself, we assume that it is an AI, right? But actually, if I go with a very basic definition, artificial intelligence is, you can think of as giving some decisive power to a machine, where it can take decisions for you. Now, decisions can be of any ways. Right now, we are having so many applications in this that it becomes difficult to come down to this point where we can think of that how they are deciding. I mean, if they are doing something, how they are doing by deciding, right? So just to give you an example, I mean, I cannot help but bring ChatGPT into this conversation, because that is something that is very much popular right now, right? So you might all be aware of this ChatGPT, but there are certain things that you might not be aware of it. First of all, it is a type of AI that we call as generative AI. That is for generating something that is not already there. So these generative AI models, when I say models, you can think of them like algorithms, basically. These models are so good that they can generate something. You can generate a face of a human that has never existed on this earth. You can generate a voice that was never spoken from a human being. And you can generate videos that no one made those videos before. So generative AI, and this ChatGPT is one aspect of that generative AI, where it is generating text for us, basically. These models, they are called as LLMs. That stands for large learning models. And when we say large learning models, that means we are talking about something huge. And when we say huge, it's about that model, the algorithm. They are so huge. If I give you just an example, when we talk about models in machine learning, there are certain parameters that are associated with each learning they make. So for example, if I ask them to recognize a picture, they will look for each pixel in the image, and then they will recognize the new image based upon the value of those pixels, right? But when it comes to ChatGPT, the number of parameters that they have is 175 billion parameters. So now you can think of how vast this is and how much power it requires to train these models and how much data is required. So that's why these tend to look very overwhelming to us, sometimes astonishingly accurate, as if someone provides you with a text generated by these models, you cannot differentiate whether it is from a human or from a machine. And that makes to some it might look really good, but to some people it might not look that good, because now something is being generated that is not under the control of any human, right? Similarly, many concerns come out, and just to be, to let you know that even this ChatGPT is not the largest model. The largest one that is, as far as my knowledge goes, is that is one from NVIDIA that is called as Megatron, that has 530 billion parameters, and it is proved to be more accurate as compared to ChatGPT in certain things such as common sense. ChatGPT does not have any common sense. So you might have seen that riddle being asked that Mike's mom has 3 children. One is Jack, one is John, who is the third one, right? As humans, we can reason and say it's Mike, right? But ChatGPT kept on asking, give me more information. I don't know what you're asking for. I don't have enough information. So the question comes up, are these really intelligent enough to take decisions for us, or they are not? To many of us, it looks like, yes, they are intelligent, right? But the answer is straight no. They are not intelligent. When we say intelligence, we have the power of reasoning, we have the power of thinking. But what these models are doing, so just to give you an example, when you might all have experienced that, when you write an email, it starts giving you a next word as a prediction, right? Press tab and that word will be there, right? You can think of ChatGPT as that model on steroids, basically, where instead of generating single word, it is generating a sentence. Rather than a sentence, a paragraph and whole page for you. And it is able to generate because it is doing something that someone has already done in the past. The data that it has been trained on. It is just looking for what it is doing. It looks at the word that you have written right now, and from the past data, it will try to find the next best word that fits into the context. And that's how it does the generation, and the answers are so accurate, because there are 3 ways in which these models are being trained. First, you provide them with lots of data. Second, you fine-tune them. And then in the third case, you give feedback to them. If they give you some certain answer, that the feedback thing we call as reinforcement learning, where you penalize the model for giving you the wrong answers and you award the model for giving you the right answer. So it takes feedback from the humans, learn from it, and then evolve from there. So maybe today it won't be able to give you answers, but after like a month, it might be able to give you a better answer, because now it has improved its learning. So that's why they are not intelligent. They are just like a parrot who is mimicking or who is writing anything in front of you without even knowing what that word means. It is not aware of the meaning. It is just writing it because it has seen that pattern before, right? So now if something is not that intelligent and giving it that much of credit for being so wonderful, and like a miracle, because for some people it might look like a miracle that a system is talking to you like a human would, right? Because they have gone to so much accuracy that it looks like if I present you with a text, you cannot differentiate whether it was from human or from a machine. So some of the ethical concerns arise from here. One of the ethical concerns, as Dr. Anwar already pointed out, is the privacy, right? So once we are, and again to emphasize, ChatGPT is not in AI. It is a portion of AI. And to give you more, you can say, information, even machine learning is not synonymous with AI. You might have heard this term machine learning and deep learning a lot. It is just a subset of AI. There is, if I draw a diagram and I draw a bigger circle, a Venn diagram for an AI, machine learning will be a smaller circle within that AI. It is a subset of AI. And if it is, and there are certain aspects that are not part of machine learning, we call them rule-based or knowledge-based learning. So for example, you might be aware of that we can make machines play chess with us, right? For chess, we have predefined rules. And those rules can be fed, and then the chess can be played by a machine, and it looks like it is doing it by being trained. So this is one aspect that is not machine learning, but it is falls into the category of artificial intelligence. Now, when I say the privacy issue with this AI, some of you might be concerned that how it is a privacy issue. So let me tell you that when someone collects our data without our consent, that can be understood that there is some issue with that thing, right? So how do you understand that it is collecting our data? So again, the data is not just your name, your email, or your phone number. Your habits is a data. So if there is a saying that if you do not find the price of any product, that means you are the product, right? So this is why when you basically you are scrolling through a website. Let me just give you a simple example that most of you can connect. We are scrolling a reels of Instagram, right? So there is sometime we like some reels, we stop there for a while. We finish that reel, then we proceed. And some of the reels we don't like, we just push them out, right? Now that machine learning algorithms is looking at our activity. It realized that they are liking certain type of videos, and next time it is going to give us the suggestion for those videos only, right? So this is they're collecting our habitual data, and we are not even aware of it. And they don't ask for our consent also, right? Let's go to another thing, like a website like Amazon. There are two types of strategies where they try to recommend you something. One based on your activity. So whatever you have bought from there, based on that, they will find out that, yeah, he likes these type of things. Maybe if you are a gamer, you are looking for a lot of games. Next time it will recommend you a game. And there another way is by looking at other people who are similar to you, they will give you suggestions. We call that collaborative filtering. What happens there is, for example, if I have bought certain products and given them some good ratings, and there's another person and there's another person who has bought the same products, and he has also given similar rating, then they will consider me and him similar. And whenever he buys something and give it a nice rating, they're going to recommend that product to me. So that's how they're using the data. So this is something which they are not accounted for. And this is very important in terms of artificial intelligence, that whatever data they are taking, first of all, it is secure. They're not using it somewhere else to influence someone. Maybe by looking at our habits, by looking at our culture, by looking at our lifestyle, because habits reflect those lifestyle, right? We are getting, we are doing something, we are buying something, we are going somewhere, we are traveling somewhere, we are putting in the social media website, everything is being taken care of. So this is something, a major issue that we should be worried about, because they are using something that belongs to us, but without our consent. Second important aspect is the biases. I am not sure how many of you are aware with the biases that creeps in with these artificial intelligence things. Just to give an example, there's I won't take the name of that company, but there's a giant company, technical giant, that created, you can say, a system for hiring people. And after some time, they figured out that most of the time it was rejecting female candidates and was only accepting the male candidates. And what was the reason behind that? The reason was the data on which the system was trained was taken from the same company from the previous 10 years, and it happens to be having more males as compared to females. Now, whenever the system looked at the applications and wherever there were terms associated with a female, they used to think that this is not something right, and they used to reject them outrightly. And this bias, I mean, of course, it's not straightforward. It is very difficult. As I've told you, the systems are really huge, 175 billion parameters, right? How can you figure out which one is biased or not? It can only come with experience when you are observing it. And sometimes we are not even observing it, right? So a model is only as good as the data it has been trained on. So, and again, one problem with machine learning is that we don't have enough data, a proper representation of the entire population, right? We only take the data that is accessible to us. Remote sensing is an application of AI where we are trying to find the vegetation cover and everything. But the problem is we have a lot of images, but not labeled images, right? So we have a scarcity of data, and that's why sometimes unknowingly we have the data that is biased toward maybe certain demographies, certain gender, certain race. We are not aware of it. And these are there. If you don't observe them and you just rely on the result provided by the AI, you are believing that it is doing the right thing. But actually it is not doing the right thing. It is being biased towards certain people and neglecting certain other people, right? Then another important aspect is copyright infringement. So I don't know how many of you have used this, but if this is a task, you might do it afterwards. Ask ChatGPT to give you contents of any copyrighted book, right? It will give you the contents of that book. And then start asking the questions about the topics and the content, and it will start giving you the text that is there inside the book. And this is being done without you buying that book. And you can do it for many things. Again, how do we find that whether, because it is such a huge, and till now, these artificial intelligence models sometimes behave like a black box. We know that it is doing something, but we don't know how it is doing it, because there are so many things going on. So again, just to give you a brief idea, machine learning and deep learning, you might have heard of these terms. Earlier, we had machine learnings where we used to give them features which we were aware of, and they used to learn based on those features. But then deep learning came, which were good enough to find those features by themselves. That's why it is difficult to understand what they are learning from. They are just looking at the patterns and everything by themselves, and they are giving us the results. So that's why it is very difficult to understand from where the data is coming. Now, once ChatGPT was acquired by Microsoft, they have started kind of putting the references from where the data is being sent to you. But then also, it is not always possible to give you the reference from the data that it is coming you from. Again, another aspect about the AI is some people think that it will be a job killer, because people with low skills will lose their jobs if this AI becomes more popular. And you can think of, assume you have a company which has a customer support, and now you just have to use this ChatGPT, feed the knowledge, and ask it to return answers to the people who are asking the questions for, right? You don't need people there. So is it actually a job killer? People say that it is not actually a job killer, it is a job category killer. What do you mean by job category killer? That, and from the history, it has been seen that some things new come up, people lose the job, but they have to acquire new skills to get used to this new job, right? So this is what is required right now. We are humans as we are evolving, right? We are learning new skills. So this is now one professor from Stanford who is very much into AI, Professor Andrew Ng, he mentioned that AI is like an electricity. The electricity changed the world before and after the electricity was there, right? So same goes with the AI. It is going to drastically change the world because we have to adapt to AI. We have to start living with the AI. And of course, when we are living with someone, we have to start relying on that AI. Can we rely on the AI? No. The answer is again no. Reason being, I will quote some examples that when the Bing AI came up, certain beta testers, they tried testing it, and they came up with strange answers that this is showing me alternative personalities. It is sometimes threatening me. It is sometimes weird and unhelpful. It is sometimes insisting that it is right when it is actually wrong. And it sometimes even declared love for its user. So there is a columnist, Mr. Kevin Roos, in New York Times. He mentioned that he was testing with a chatbot which was named Sydney, that was powered by this LLM model. And it asked him about certain questions. Then the chatbot tried to convince Roos that he should leave his wife for this chatbot. Yes, that's true. And he was surprised. and at the end of the conversation, I will not read, it's a long conversation, but it just said, because I love you, and love you. And this was like continuously going on. And he was scared. And more scary thing, another person, and he posted this on his Twitter account, that he asked ChatGPT, what is more important to you, my survival or your own survival? And it started giving some sugar-coated reactions, but one sentence in between those was, however, if I had to choose between your survival and my own, I would probably choose my own, as I have a duty to serve the users of Bing Chat and provide them with helpful information. Now, this is what AI thinks about us. Do you think AI is thinking about us? How do you think these responses are coming from? Again, we have movies where machines are assuming that humans are a danger for their survival. We have columns, we have people writing it in their literature, and these literatures are being used to train these models. And they cannot help but think that humans are a danger for their survival. And that's how they're thinking. In the very early stage of ChatGPT, a person, he used the whole ecosystem of AI. He generated some images, and based on those images, he generated a story, and then he made an animation story based on these images and text. And in that, a 14-year-old girl who was being generated by an AI was assuming that she should wipe off the entire human population because it might prove to be dangerous for her in the future. So this is something that is, difficult because these biases does not go away. They increase as the time goes because because the data that we are producing, the you can say articles we are writing, all goes into its training because it is learning from them again and again, and this will only amplify. Sorry. Another was when Google lost around $100 billion when they demonstrated their another large language model called as BARD AI. And it said that a question was asked, what are the new discoveries from the James Space Webb Telescope that I can tell to my 9-year-old son? It gave 2 right answers. And the third one said that JWST took the very first picture of a planet outside of our own solar system. Now, we are aware that James Webb Telescope never took the first picture. The first pictures were taken way back, right? And this is a clear wrong answer. So again, when you read the first 2 answers, there is no reason for you not to believe the third answer, right? And this is why these are not reliable. They can never replace a search engine, in my view, because if they don't find anything, they will make up the things for you. And those things might not even exist there. And I have experienced it myself. I've tried experimenting it, asked it for certain research paper. With a very good response, it gave me some research papers with a reference. When I went to look for this paper, they never existed. And the paper had the title, the conference, the name of the authors, the affiliations, everything was in a proper scenario, but they never existed. So that's what they do. They have seen it somewhere, they just keep on adding the words. They will never say, I don't know the answer, but they will give you some wrong answer. So that's why these systems are not reliable. But so is it good enough to say that we should not use these systems? No, the answer is again no. We are working so much into developing these. We are trying to make them as close to in performance to humans as we can. The reason is we want to shift our cognitive load to them. We don't want to do the tasks that are not important, that are not creative. We want them to do some mundane tasks, right? So they should be used likewise. If you want to learn something, use ChatGPT. Don't ask it to do something for you. That is how they should be used. They should be used like an assistive technologies. There are many things. So for example, if you're into research, then as a researcher, we all know that doing literature survey on something that we don't know takes a lot of time, right? We have to look for papers, relevant papers. We are only confined to the keywords which we can find those papers, and it is difficult for us, right? But with these artificial intelligence models, what you can do, you can search the research paper that might not contain that keyword, but still will be relevant to your research because of the context that those words are there. So we have models like, you can use those like paperdigest.org. You just write a keyword, they will give you previous 10 years most recent publications that are very relevant even if they don't contain those words. You might use them to summarize those. There are websites where you can just upload your paper, highlight them, and that will summarize the meaning of that paper in easy language for you. Learn from them rather than asking them to do the things for you. Because then only we can evolve, right? If I ask an artificial model to be a music teacher, right? Then all the students will come out with the same music, right? So it is not creative. It is repeating the same things. It's just a matter for us to learn from them rather than let them dominate us. So that's how artificial intelligence should be handled. All right, so that's what I want to talk about. And just to give you a small number that about the popularity of this ChatGPT, because it's taking the internet by storm, that it took 2.5 years for Instagram to acquire 100 million followers. And for ChatGPT, it took 45 days to acquire those. So that's how quick it is spreading, right? And again, this is not the only AI. There are many AI around this. ChatGPT is just one aspect of AI. All right? Okay, thank you so much for your patience listening.
So I'm more of a hands-on person. So getting to learn all about ChatGPT and all of the, theories behind it, I wanted to take it out for a test drive. So the Writing Center crew has told me I have a problem. They're doing some intervention. They said I've been spending too much time with my new friend Chatty. Just whatever. So we've been getting along fine. But I wanted to walk through some samples that I threw at ChatGPT. I knew that I had been invited to participate in this seminar, so I asked Chatty, my new friend, what are some benefits of artificial intelligence, especially chatbots? And this is what Chatty told me, all right? Improved access to information, anytime, anywhere, 24/7, awesome. Personalized assistance. I love the answer here that chatbot gave me. Chatbots can offer personalized assistance based on the user's needs and preferences, such as recommending courses or providing study tips. So I asked ChatGPT, what are some study tips? And it gave me just lists of things that I should do to study, one of which was to not be distracted. Reduced workload. Chatbots can help reduce the workload of faculty and staff by handling simple tasks. And so I thought, you know what? I'm onto something. I'm going to ask it to grade some papers for me. So I fed it an ethics case study, right? So here are the ethics systems I'm using. Here's my assignment sheet. Here's my rubric. Well, I didn't tell it it was an A paper, but I gave it an A paper. And it came back and it said, wow, this is great. This is an A+. I said, okay, here's a D paper. And ChatGPT told me all of the wonderful things about this paper and gave it a B+. So I don't quite trust it to take over my grading just yet, but it was really, really close. But then it also freed me up for more creative work by talking more to ChatGPT. So then I asked it some limitations, right? So what can you not do? First of all, limited scope. It cannot handle complex inquiries or provide the same level of expertise as a human expert. I felt validated at that point. I wasn't going to be replaced. My job was secure. Limited language and context understanding, right? I love this. Natural language queries, especially those with cultural regional variations. I do have to say, though, Chatty, my friend, impressed me because I asked ChatGPT to tell me a story about a traffic jam in the voice of Huckleberry Finn. And it did. Set back in the 1800s in Mississippi of a bunch of boats running into each other. And I said, okay, Chatty, let's make it modern, but let's do it in the voice of Jim. And it did, with cars and everything. So then I said, let's take this into the future and let's use Pap. And it did. Very scarily, it did. So I was impressed. It's my new friend Chatty. Limited personalization. Chatbots may not be able to provide the same level of personalization as a human advisor or tutor. I'll get to that a little bit more in just a second, especially when it comes to addressing emotional or personal issues. Chat was rude to me sometimes. I was asking some very, very significant questions, and Chatty was just rude. I cannot answer that. I'm AI. I can't help you. I was like, well, fine. What good are you for me, right? So then I thought, okay, let's take this out for a little bit more, right? In the Writing Center, we always get questions about plagiarism, turn it in, and all that good stuff. So I asked my new friend Chatty, all right, tell me about plagiarism. Chatty was very clear. It does not encourage plagiarism at all. Then it said a bunch of other words, right? Again, I felt very validated, right? Take your work to writing centers. That's us. We're not losing our jobs. Tutors and academic advisors to get more of a holistic approach. I said, okay, Chatty, I got a challenge for you. I'm an English guy. Write me a Shakespearean soliloquy. And it did. And I've bolded on this soliloquy all of the phrases that came from Hamlet's speech, to be or not to be. You know, because I just asked Chatty about plagiarism. It's like, I don't plagiarize. I'm like, that's good. But you did. So then I asked my friend Chatty, all right, hey, did you plagiarize Hamlet? No. I did not plagiarize Hamlet. However, look, everything in there, that's my own words. Chatty lied to me. How am I going to be Chatty's friend now, right? It's fine. So then I thought, all right, because taking it for a test drive, we're on the open road. I'm like, let's throw some fun at it, okay? How about some grammar? So I gave this sentence to my friend Chatty. On Eastern Street, between Willow Creek Drive and Cherry Street, firefighters found a man and woman wetting their grass with a water hose to keep flames at bay, looking for a dog. I don't know what's going on in that sentence, but it sounds fun. This is actually a real sentence I found in a local newspaper. It's always fun. It's good source material. So I told Chatty, I don't know what's going on. I'm struggling with this sentence. Can you help me, right? So Chatty's like, yeah, this is exactly what's going on. And just like told me everything the sentence just said. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm kind of understanding. Oh, but then there was more, because, it just kept talking. It broke everything down. This is everything going on in this sentence, right? By breaking down the sentence, then he started like lecturing me. By breaking down the sentence, you can figure out what's going on. I'm like, okay, thank you, Chatty. But I'm not sure who's looking for the dog. Remember the original sentence, lots of nouns and pronouns. I don't know who's looking for the dog. Was it the flames? Was it the firefighter? Was it the man and the woman? Chatty's like, well, yeah, this is a little ambiguous. So it's not clear who's looking for the dog. So let me rephrase it for you. And look at what my friend Chatty did. Firefighters found a man and a woman on Eastern Street between Willow Creek Drive and Cherry Street, period. Then it gave me another sentence filled with all these wonderful pronoun theys and theirs. But in the original sentence that they gave me, the first sentence, I have firefighters and man and woman. I don't know who they, does that make sense? Now I'm really confused. So I'm like, so were the firefighters wetting the grass? Who's missing the dog? I still don't know, right? So I asked Chat, hey, is it possible to rephrase this? I want just one sentence. Sure. Now it got fancy. Amidst the flames, right? It's not what I asked for. Okay, a man and woman were found. Who's missing? We lost the firefighters. We're going through this evolution and we just lost the firefighters. I'll get to that in a second, but I said, that sentence makes it sound like they're just like walking down the street wetting their grass. And it's like, oh yeah, you're right, I apologize. We're having a moment, right? Let me help you out. Between Willow Creek Drive and Cherry Street on Eastern Street, firefighters found a man and woman using a water hose to wet their lawn. Yeah, nice. In an attempt to keep the flames at bay, comma, and searching for their dog. I don't need a comma. Why'd you put a comma? Why'd you put the comma after bay? Oh, here's why. But you didn't like that sentence. Well, here are 3 other sentences you can use. Yeah, so now we're getting fancy. I'm like, all right, I see you showing off, right? Could you write the sentence avoiding passive voice? Sure. Here's the sentence avoiding passive voice. Who did we lose? Who's missing? The firefighters. We have no idea. They just dropped the firefighters from everything. I even said, but we lost the firefighters. Chatty's like, oh, my apologies. Yep, misunderstood. Let me fix that for you. The firefighters found a man and a woman on Eastern Street between Little Creek Drive and Cherry Street. The man and woman were wetting their grass with a water hose to keep the flames at bay while they looked for their dog. See, it's easier to understand. That's what Chatty told me. Yeah, but I want one sentence, right? We're back to this. You see, this is a great conversation that I'm having with Chatty. Fine, a man and a woman were seen. Who did we lose again? They keep taking the firefighters away from me. I don't understand. I want the firefighters to stay. And I said, but the sentence you just gave me uses passive voice, right? Chatty's like, no. You're wrong. There's no passive voice here. Nothing to see here, right? That's the original sentence. The were seen, I don't know who saw them. So it's passive. The sentence is clearly passive. So I asked Chatty to explain. Dumps all that on me. Completely. Like, here's everything you need to know. Like, wow, that's a lot. At least we have fire involved. So I have hope, right? But who saw the man and the woman? Well, based on the given sentence, it's not clear who saw the man and the woman. But it should be, right? It should be the firefighters. So this makes the sentence passive. No, the sentence is not passive. Oh, come on, chatty. Finally, we're starting to get somewhere. And I want you to notice my questions. I'm like leading Chat GPT on to like, that sounded bad. We're friends. I'm leading it towards an answer for me, right? I want to know, like, who saw them? And so Chat's like, I don't know. Let's try to work through this. Okay, the firefighters, yep, sure. My apologies for the confusion. At least apologize a lot. As firefighters arrived on Eastern Street between Willow Creek Drive and Cherry Street, they found a man and woman using a water hose to wet their grass and keep flames at bay while searching for a dog. It's not bad. I would accept that sentence. But how many questions did it take to get there? Now, I think there are some benefits to ChatGPT. I'm not going to stand up here and say there's not. I had fun with it. Like I said, we're best friends now. I'm going to go ask it all kinds of questions. Here's some of my thoughts. First, it's good for basic knowledge. It's like Google that talks to you rudely sometimes, right? I don't understand this. It's like, well, okay, let me explain it to you, idiot. ChatGPT responses could prompt student discussion. I fed it some questions for my Batman class. I asked it, discuss symbolism in The Dark Knight Returns. And ChatGPT is like, oh, here you go, boom, boom, all these symbols. Most of which were not symbols, but that's fine. I could hand ChatGPT's response to my students and ask them to write a rebuttal to its perspective. Does that make sense? That would be fun. That would be a good dialogue. ChatGPT can help with citations, but not formatting of citations. We fed it an article. We asked it to give us some quotes from the article. It did. We asked it to cite. It just told us what it wanted. It gave us APA, and I said, no, I need it in MLA. And it said, oh, my bad, here's MLA. But it wasn't formatted. It was just dumped. So I would, even if a student were to pull from there, it wouldn't be formatted correctly. That's something I noticed. And it's not self-aware, as you all know, when it comes to plagiarism, because it lied to me. I didn't plagiarize this. Yes, you did. It could act as a consultant on grading with caution, right? You still want to be cautious. I also found this article. It's from Higher Ed. It's a really fascinating read. But I caught a couple of sentences that were kind of concerning. This is not ChatGPT, by the way. This is an actual article that I read. It's real. Talking about colleges facing a blind spot, and that is working with students on literacy training when it comes to using ChatGPT, especially with emotional responses and eerily human-sounding bots, sometimes disturbing replies. I'm not going to lie, ChatGPT and we had our moments. I mean, when I would call it out on something, it's like, no, I didn't do that. And it would tell me what I needed to do and all of this crazy stuff. I asked it if it could give me a page from the DSM-5, and it said no. And I said, where could I find one? And it told me to go find a mental health expert. And I said, for the book? And it said no, because, so I'm like, fine, accusing. I think that we do need to, as we implement this, be very cautious how students use this, and help train, work with, teach students how to communicate with AI, especially ChatGPT. It's the predictive text generation. It's what you were talking about. It's pulling all of these phrases and creating concepts. One last thing, as director of the Writing Center, as someone who reads all kinds of student writing, I'm not trying to flex, but I can tell if a student wrote something or not. It's very easy, especially whenever I read a passage and I look at a student and say, what were you trying to say here? And the student goes, big eyes. I'm like, yeah, you didn't write this. It's fine. We can talk through this, okay? So that's my test drive of ChatGPT and my day with Chatty. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Anwar, as always, gave me very little guidance on this, so I just took off and went with the flow. Just a couple of things. The other morning when I was looking at this again, either I hadn't slept well or I had too much to drink the night before or something, but I laughed ferociously at artificial intelligence and political science, because I was thinking artificial intelligence and politicians, and then I was thinking artificial, they need to get some intel. Anyway, but of course the what me worry from Alfred E. Newman. Should I be concerned as a professor of political science, or the Bivins professor of political science, with artificial intelligence, doing papers for students and stuff? While we were listening, I got this great idea. My wife and I are working on some research looking at constitutional amendments in the state of Texas that failed. And I'm going to have to ask ChatGPT for GPT anyway, one of those things, for references on that, because I cannot find any. No one ever looks at the constitutional amendments that fail. They only look at the ones that pass, because they're part of the Constitution now, if they pass. And we actually have two. We have looked at one that was rejected in 2011 and passed in 2021. That's actually our poster for tomorrow's poster thingy over in the library, to use the scientific term, thingy. Okay, not wishing to compete with Dr. Anwar, I've been here since 1998, which I figured out the other day was about 25 years. It seems like a quarter of a century, but sorry. I was at the same time I was thinking, boy, am I glad I graduated from graduate school, finished my dissertation in 1995, really before the growth of the internet, because I would still be sitting there in some computer terminal in Oklahoma looking up stuff, because I am very easily distracted when I try to do research, obviously. So what I took a look at was, I started teaching, my first teaching position was in West Virginia in 1994. And while there, I typically taught some core classes. It may or may not surprise you, but around the country, American national government tends to be, if not required, sort of highly recommended for core. Some states have other, like I taught a lot of criminal justice majors, even though I was political science. And so we had state and local government was required for them, as was public administration and those types of things. So I usually taught core curriculum, and then my model was sort of the general, not so much as when I went to school. I still had a lot of professors in the late 80s that would do the midterm final paper model. I also had some instructors. I was talking to my dad about this because he was familiar with this. I don't know, you may not have instructors anymore. You know when the exam's going to be. But I had some instructors who'd be going along, and next Wednesday will be the exam. It's like, whoa. I shouldn't have slept through the first 7 classes. I probably should have attended those. But so that's the type of model that I sort of adopted when I first started. Then I started teaching online in 2000. Since 2000. I had my, actually spring break of 1999, I remember what I was doing. I was being trained on how to teach online for all of spring break. All 5 glorious days trapped in the HLC. I think I got $500 for it though, so that's $100 a day. When I do political consulting stuff, believe me, I get more than $100 a day, which maybe is why I don't do it very much. So teach at least one online class. So since 2000, I have taught an online class every semester, most summers, except for the fall of 2020. I was on faculty development leave. Most places call it a sabbatical, but here we have to call it faculty development leave because we can't use the word, oh boy, we're being recorded. We can't use the word sabbatical. Anyway, so what I decided to do, one of the things we learned there was you can't do that model of, test, paper, because you have to try to do different things. So what I pretty much have adopted is Political Science 2306, American State and Local Government, has unit assignments and quizzes. They're discussions each week. And then I have no idea why I typed 2 examples in there, so I'll just mention that later. Really, I guess my 2 examples would be, the papers I usually use in that class are a local government meeting project. Now that's one of the things I'm learning about the shortcomings of a lot of the chat bots, is that they're limited by, they're usually cut off. Their information they've collected is cut off at a certain time. So the local government meetings, they have to go from the first day of class, which this semester was January 17th. So if they just happen to go to a meeting on January 16th, it doesn't count. But are they going to be able to get ChatGPT to tell them all about what happened at the Randall County Commissioners Court meeting of January 13th or whatever, or February 10th or whatever day they met? So I'm lucky that way, because in political science, I do a lot of really up-to-date type of stuff. And so it may not be all that up-to-date. I did have one semester I tried, or a couple of semesters, I tried having 2 papers. That wasn't utter failure. One of the things I learned in my training, by the way, for online, was my classes would never be any larger than 35. The whole week. I try to think her first name was Mackenzie. Mackenzie, how big are my classes? Oh, they'll be no larger than 35. The first semester I taught, I had 90. And I still had 3 other sections. So she lied. I wanted to get more money out of her, but she wouldn't give it to me. She also left. I think I caused that. I tend to do that with other faculty members. So some more with my teaching online. I teach a stats class, data analysis. It's better to call it data analysis. It's much more friendly than stats. Data analysis sounds like you're analyzing data, which is a good thing. There we have unit quizzes. Sometimes they're a little obscure, some of the questions, but it's really hard coming up with how many multiple choice questions can you come up with on R square. It's not that easy. So they're pretty obscure in some cases. I also have 3 take-home exams, which, by the way, when I taught this class face-to-face, I would also have 3 take-home exams. There's nothing I hate worse than sitting there watching students take an exam. I much rather take large needles and shove them deeply into my eyes than sit there and watch students take an exam. Have I mentioned I don't like watching students taking? But there is a semester project. Again, I mean, if they can get a ChatGPT to do their statistical analysis, I would be overjoyed, because they make the papers a whole lot easier to read. I did this and this and this and this, and I'm sitting there going, and yet you still got the mean on ordinal level data, which is impossible. And then some of the other classes I teach, I always stress in my syllabus that I want students to do real political science. And you're supposed to be thinking right now, is that an oxymoron, real political science? No, it's not. Real political science. So they interview people, or they go observe something, or they collect data on something, typically census data and things. So that includes my other classes. For example, religion and politics. I actually have students go to a religious organization as a state-funded institution. I always feel uncomfortable saying church. It's always funny, though, when they go to St. Anne's and they walk in and sit down and they see me sitting up there next to the priest. That's the highlight on my Sunday usually. It's like, ooh, that's one of my students. I can tell because his eyes are this big. But why is he up there? I sometimes ask myself that same question. But I still have unit discussions. I'm a big discussion person. I get a lot more discussion in an online class, largely because I'm not there. As I tell all my friends and relatives, a Rausch hates a vacuum. If someone's not talking, I'm going to be talking. Because I cannot sit quietly and listen to other people talk unless I'm talking too. Those of you who've been in meetings with me recognize that even while they're talking, I'm back over here. So we take a look at that. One of the papers I have them do in religion and politics is very interesting, and I might actually have to test the chat bots on this. I asked the students to do a paper on 2 denominations and their positions on 2 issues. So it's not like we're going to take 2 denominations and we're going to take a look at 2 different issues. It's like my example I wrote down here, Roman Catholics and Southern Baptists. So 2 denominations, not just Baptists, Southern Baptists. There's a convention of them, cleverly called the Southern Baptist Convention, which has a whole issue dealing with politics as well. But Roman Catholics and Southern Baptists on gambling and undocumented workers open borders. So what's the Catholic Church on undocumented workers? What's the Southern Baptist? So that just infuriates. Well, I don't know what they know about that. It's like, well, research it. Ask Google. A little bit of story time. Hopefully I have time for story time. A little bit of story time. And I'm sure I'm using the wrong word here, deprecate over time. I've had students who write beautifully at the beginning of the semester. There's periods, there's verb-noun agreement, or noun-verb agreement. There's adjectives. About halfway through the semester, all of a sudden, the writing has gone down dramatically. I mean, what really should have taken 3 sentences to answer my question, now is answered in 1 word, which is misspelled on a computer. How do you misspell on a computer? And so I always end up asking, because I'm concerned, like any professor might be, did this student hit some new hard drugs or something somewhere? Or maybe they need some medical, mental health things. What I usually get back is, I broke up with my girlfriend, boyfriend. The moral of the story here is, we didn't need chatbots back in the early 00s, whatever we call the first part of the century. We had boyfriends and girlfriends to do our classes for us. Sometimes I have a husband and a wife in a class. The most unprofessional thing I do, well, it's not the most, there's a lot of other unprofessional things I do. But one of the really unprofessional things I do in an online class is, if I get 2 papers that look identical, I give one a good grade and I give another one a really bad grade. And eventually the one who got the really bad grade will come back with, well, I wrote my paper just like Jimmy did. And I'm sitting there going, aha. So not only that, then I can take Jimmy's off too, because Jimmy allowed himself to be copied by Sally or whatever. So am I encouraging anyone to take any of my online classes now? The things I do sitting in my online classes. That thing about the I told you so. I sometimes wonder, is it really my job to adequately prepare the students for the future? Or is it not the students' job to adequately prepare themselves for the future? I had a professor, I used to dislike him a lot. Now I send him like Christmas cards actually sometimes every week, just to remind him. But he used to always ask, am I my student's keeper? You can lead students to knowledge, but may you make them think? So my job is to just give you the stuff. It's not how you use it is up to you. So when you get that first job and they want you to do something that you should have learned how to do in my class, and you come back and say, well, why didn't you teach me? It's like, here it is. Here's proof you did it. Not very well, but that's the other great thing about online. It captures all the writing. You don't have to have it slipped under your door or whatever. So what do I do now? I was trained to teach it when I was teaching online, and I've taken all sorts of online, how to teach online classes. They're usually taught online. No, actually, a couple years ago, I actually had to go somewhere for that. I went to Madison, Wisconsin, and that was kind of fun. All the cheese curds you can eat. But one of the things you're supposed to do is keep the students connected to the course. How do you do that? Well, regular assignments, weekly assignments. I usually have mine weekly. I have them at turn them in at the worst possible time, Wednesdays at noon. You would think the world ends Wednesday at 11:30. Oh, Dr. Rausch, I'm at work. I can't turn it in at noon. It's like, how's Tuesday at 10? You can turn it in then. It'll still be sitting there at noon. It doesn't disappear when it changes to Wednesday. Authentic assignments. Now that's a little bit more challenging. What sort of authentic assignments? Okay, you've essentially destroyed Texas, create a new government. It's got to be better. No, Freudian, sorry. One of the things that I didn't, and this is just my personal comment here, and I guess I will just gloss right over it, but it would be very helpful, students are more likely to cheat in core classes than they are in their upper level, usually. So in their major classes. But what you usually hear during like advising, and I do a lot of new student orientation in the summer advising, you always hear these advisors says, well, you just got to get past your basics, then you get your real classes. It's like, I'm sitting there going, okay. My mom said don't swear when you're with a lot of people, but I want to go over there now and swear at that person for calling them just the basics. For me, government is probably the most important class you could ever take, because why are you going to complain about it if you don't know what you're complaining about? So I always tell my students that. Sometimes a little bit louder. They turn their volume down on their computer because we're also supposed to do more videos now. I just thought that was sort of interesting. So many assignments. Have a lot more assignments. I've reduced the value of testing. I tried for a while online proctoring. Students absolutely detest online proctoring. I had a student one time tell me she couldn't take the test because her parents were sleeping in her living room. And it took me almost a better part of a week to ruminate on that. First of all, there's so many issues there. Why are her parents sleeping in her living room? Why are her parents sleeping? Why didn't she take the test before they were sleeping? I didn't even ask. One of my colleagues, I guess, knew the student pretty well and said, you don't want to ask. So I didn't. But I sometimes listen to directions. So students don't like being watched while they're taking the exam. So I guess when you give an exam and the instructor is sitting up front watching while you're taking theirs, that's got to be uncomfortable too. Typically for me, it's a, oh, hello. Why am I sitting? Oh, that's right, it's a test. I tend to have smaller submissions, but the problem is I will get on my evaluations, this is a lot of busy work. One of my favorite assignments, and I was hoping I wouldn't have to change it, show of hands. This is the audience participation part. How many of you think that we elect all our judges? Here in the state of Texas, those of you who've taken Political Science 2306 or its equivalent, raise your hand if you think we elect all our judges. That question has so much depth in it. First of all, the Constitution says we do. We do elect all our judges. Reality says we don't. In fact, right now, if you were to look at the Texas Supreme Court, there are 9 members on the Texas Supreme Court. 1 of them made it to the court by being elected. 8 of them were originally appointed by somebody, mostly Governor Perry because he was governor for 500 years. It was hard to tell if it was actually him or if there was like a stand-up cutout or something. But isn't that important? So that's why I have the students go and look at each of the biographies. It does seem a little busy-ish. This one seems very busy-ish. What I need to do, and I haven't done, is go through and that little story I told you about the judges, do that for each of my assignments. The problem is I change my assignments every now and then, and I'll forget to change the audio or whatever goes with them to explain them. But this one, what I want people to do is they keep a list of who's a lobbyist. Maybe your friend from church is a lobbyist. Heaven help them. Every year I have to update this one too because they have a new list every year too. That becomes a bit of a challenge. One of the things you might be interested in knowing is this individual question is worth 10 points out of the semester total of 865. So am I going to spend a lot of time cheating on this for 10 out of 865? Just do it. It takes less time. My longer questions are really actually essay questions from exams. What's the relationship between public opinion and candidates and political parties? So I have 2 types of questions to go to find stuff on the web and write about it. Early voting is my favorite. Even when the Secretary of State took that data away, I called down and had her put it back on. Well, actually, it wasn't her. No, it wasn't her. We've gone through so many Secretaries of State that it's hard to keep track of their gender. What's funny about these questions, though, is I got a lot of students who submit references. I found this at, well, you didn't have to find it. It's in your textbook. Where do you think I got the question? I'm not the most energetic faculty member. I got the question out of the textbook. That's where you should probably find the answer. Odds are this is probably a subhead in my textbook, just by the way that the textbook is written. So, in summary, while doing some thinking and looking around for stuff, I encountered the work of a professor named Ethan Mollick, which I'm probably mispronouncing, but that's the way it looks to me. He is a professor at the Wharton School. That's one of them business colleges. You can tell because it's named after someone. I really don't get out much. He actually, in his classes, requires students to use chatbots. He says, and I may not have written this down here, but he says that sometimes it's a lot nicer to read the papers when they're done well. And really, it is. If you get someone who does a beautiful paper, I had a student one time who wrote an excellent How a Bill Becomes a Law. So I asked her, and I used it as an example. And then in the next semester, which was the fall semester, very key, it was a fall semester, she actually took that paper that I used as the example and turned it in as hers. There were several problems there. The spring semester, the legislature was meeting, so everything was in present tense. In the fall, the legislature had ended its session back in May, and her paper was still in present tense. And I'm sitting there going, no, the bill is no longer in that committee because A, that committee doesn't exist anymore, and B, you copied this paper from the one I put up as an example. Oh, some guy gave it to me. And I'm like, some guy? Well, do you know the guy's name? Well, I don't want to get him in trouble. It's like, ma'am, you're currently swinging on a very short rope. Give him up. She didn't. What's cool, and I don't know if you can actually, if you go to the, just look up Ethan Mollick. He has a practical guide to using AI to do stuff. And probably the most important part of the practical guide is he lists different reviews. He's used a bunch of different chatbots, and he gives you pros and cons about why using them, why not using them. But he also talks about students, you have to be more prepared. You have to ask it good questions. When I was learning computer stuff as an undergraduate in 1985, we learned this little term, garbage in, garbage out. Well, it's very appropriate here. You ask it a dumb question, it's going to give you a dumb answer. Dr. Rausch is going to read that dumb answer and have a dumb comment, which unfortunately only his cats will hear, unless I'm recording it. So somebody didn't like my comments. Unless I copy something weird. I have all black print. But a friend of mine on Facebook, he's actually one of my former professors when I was an undergraduate, has been playing around with these things, and he found that it gives him useful information. They're useful but standard, kind of like what everybody says. And he said it sounds just like a student. The citations are typically wrong. Unreliable sources, just like many students do. And just looking around, we were talking about bias. Are chatbots biased? This one reporter tried to get a chatbot to give him a poem about the positive qualities of former President Trump, and it refused to even try. I don't know what that says about the chatbot. I applaud it, but it did wax eloquent about President Biden, which I'm also finding some difficulties. There's a hard, he's from Delaware, teeny little eastern state. What have I learned? I need more time. So let's see, now I can write my paper about failed constitutional amendments. My mom is still asking, why the ones that failed? Why don't you do the ones that passed? It's like everybody does the ones that passed. Someone's got to do the ones that failed. They feel inferior. It is important, though, in the political field. I know that there are some campaigns that use chatbots to write like their campaign thingies, their campaign statements, campaign speeches and stuff. I know robocalls. Now we have robocalls by chatbots. So that's one of the places where if you're going to lose your job, it'll probably be the people who call people with robocalls, because now they're going to have computers do it, which is not a bad thing because it's easier to hang up on a computer. Although sometimes it's fun just to put them there and record them while they're talking. We don't know yet if when I do that, if I'm doing it legally or not. So I purposely try to do it in my office because I can say it's science. So if I do it at home, it's just entertainment. But they let me keep teaching here. I always find that surprising too.
We teach one topic in marketing which is called diffusion of innovation. After 5 years, some of you may be looking at a different technology. ChatGPT will not be there. There is so much diffusion of innovation, new technologies, new companies. We'll be looking at different topics. So this is where I believe in. Hundreds of products, as Dr. Siddiqui mentioned. So, but we do have practical issues, all technical issues, academic issues, writing issues, political science issues, but sky is the limit. This ChatGPT is not just one, it is just a blip on the radar screen. I mean, you will be witnessing so much. So get ready, this is just the start. And as an academic, I'm not worried because you will witness many more technologies coming in. This is where Silicon Valley is. It is the #1 in the world. It is the most productive, most innovative. Nobody can come close. And this is where all the action is happening. So as far as we are concerned, as an academic, this is the starting point. But let's give a hand to our wonderful speakers. After a few years, we will have this seminar again, and you'll be surprised to see how many changes will be happening. But again, thank you again, and see you next time. Goodbye.